Hello, dear students. Welcome to our first class. In this video, you're going to learn what you are expected to do in writing task 1 and how to write an effective formal letter. For starters, let's talk about the writing test. In the IELTS General Writing Test, you have to write two tasks. Writing task 1, which is a letter, and writing task 2, which is an essay. You have 1 hour to do the test, and ideally, you should spend 40 minutes on writing task 2 and 20 minutes on writing task 1. I strongly recommend that you begin your test with writing task 2 because this task is worth twice as much as writing task 1. So you should leave writing task 1 to the end when you are already very tired. Remember that the writing test is the last one. So when you begin it, you will be exhausted. Now imagine how you feel after 20 minutes of test. So do writing task 2 while you are still able to focus. Well, let's talk about writing task 1. Writing task 1 is much more simple than writing task 2. Basically, you have to write a letter, which may be a formal letter, an informal letter, or a semi-formal letter. You have to write letters with at least 150 words, but we'd like you to write more than that, about 180 and 200 words. You should always try to write more than the minimum because this will help you get a higher score. So let's be more specific and talk about the different kinds of letters. Formal letters, semi-formal letters, and informal letters. So what exactly are formal letters? They are letters of complaint, letters of application, letters that we write to people that we don't know. Semi-formal letters are letters to neighbors, bosses, or professors. So we know those people, but we have a lot of respect for them. We have a certain distance from them. It's not a close relationship. And finally, informal letters, which are basically letters to friends or family members. Anyway, in today's class, we're going to learn how to write one of the most common kinds of formal letters, which is a letter of application. So, let's go straight to the point. Let me begin by showing you two examples of letters of application. The first topic is about a position as a volunteer at a hospital, and the second one is a job as a salesperson at the city museum. This is exactly how they present the topic. So basically, they describe the job position and then they give you clear instructions about the kind of information they wanted to include in your letter. You have to mention all the items they suggest. Otherwise, you're going to be penalized. If you want to include extra details, you can. Actually, you should. Just be careful not to exceed the time limits. Remember, you have 20 minutes to write the letter. Do not get carried on. By the way, let me tell you something before you forget. You should never use contractions in formal letters. If you use contractions, you're going to be penalized. Remember that Cambridge, the institution that is responsible for the IELTS, is very conservative. So you have to be as formal as you can. Now, I'm going to show you how you should open and close formal letters. Saying hello or hi is still informal. You should not open any letter like that, not even informal ones. Basically, there are two ways of opening formal letters, and it all depends on whether you know the name of the recipient or not. If you know the name of the recipient, if they tell you the name of the person you need to write, then you have to begin with Dear Mr. Smith, for example, or Dear Ms. White. And you close with yours sincerely and your first and your last name. Actually, you always have to write your first and your last names in formal letters. If they do not give you any names, then you have to begin with dear sir or madam. And you close with yours faithfully and your first and your last name again. So this is it. Now that you know the basics about writing a letter, let me show you how you can plan a letter. To plan a letter effectively, you have to focus on the instructions they give you and think about at least 2 answers for each of them. For example, in the first instruction, they asked me to talk about how my personality and experience would make me a good candidate for the job. So, I wrote down a few reasons which you can see in item number 1. So, I'm going to say that I'm communicative, that I thrive when goals are set, and that I study history, and that I have already had 2 jobs as a salesperson. One at a department store and another one at a designer's boutique. In item number 2, they tell me to explain why I'm interested in the job. So I'm going to say that I would like to get some extra money for tuition next semester and that I have no classes in December, so I'll be totally free and I'll have nothing to do. And in the last item, they asked me to say how they can contact me. So I'm going to give them my email address and my phone number. You need to think about how you're going to answer the topics before you begin writing. This will help you write an organized and effective letter. If you don't plan, you will have trouble. But remember, planning should take you about 2 minutes. Do not waste your time planning. It should be something really fast. Once you finish planning your letter, it's time to start writing. Now on this slide, I'm going to show you how you should organize your letters. Your letter should have no more than 3 or 4 paragraphs, but I like to think about the letters as if they were divided in 3 parts. So in part 1, we have the opening. What is the opening? Is when you greet the recipient. Dear sir or madam or dear Mr. Smith, for example. Then, after you greet the recipient of your letter, you have to explain why you're writing. So you always begin by clearly stating the reason why you're writing. So after dear sir or madam, you literally begin by saying, I'm writing this letter to apply for the job advertised. Then, in the same paragraph, you can answer one of the instructions in the question. In the next paragraph, which is going to be the body of your letter, so let's call it part 2, you're going to write about the 2 instructions that are given in the question. So you have already answered one of the instructions in paragraph 1. Remember, you are usually given 3 instructions, so you answer the first one in your first paragraph, which would be something like the introduction, and then you're going to use the next paragraph to talk about the other 2. So what we call part 3 would be the closing of your letter. So you have to finish your letter in a very formal way. So you can write, I look forward to a response, or I look forward to a swift reply. Yours sincerely, if you know the name of the recipient, or yours faithfully, if you don't know the name of the recipient, and then your first and your last name. Well, now I think that I've already taught you everything you need to know about writing a letter of application. But before we finish this class, I want to show you a list of useful expressions that we expect you to use in your writing task 1. These phrases will help you write faster and get a few extra points for fluency, grammar, and vocabulary. So, we truly want you to use these expressions. You should know them by heart. You should definitely memorize them. Well, that's all for now. I have finished my explanation about how to write a formal letter, more specifically, a letter of application. And now you can go to our platform and write your first letter of application. Do not forget to follow our instructions and try to revise the content before you write your first letter so as to avoid making mistakes.